Beatie, thanks so much for joining us. I know that you've got a lot going on, and I'm sure that you're an incredible demand. And thanks so much for being on our program.
I think that the person who has a lot going on is you. I think everyone in the world wonders, how does Charlie Harari do everything he does and still like breathe?
Well, I'm not running marathons, so it's a little easier when you get to stay in one spot. But thank you for your kindness. And in many ways, what you're doing is really inspiring the world. People are constantly inspired by you, constantly inspired by your story, by what you're doing, what you stand for, and how you do what you do with not only the elegance but also the faith in which you bring with it. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor.
Thanks for having me.
So talk to me a little bit about how it got started. Because when I read your story, I was really blown away because we live in a time sometimes where people feel that you sort of know who you are when you're young. And if you haven't figured it out by like high school, then, the ship has sailed a little bit. And when you started running, you were well beyond that. So talk to us a little bit about, I believe like you were in your mid 20s, you had a few children already. Like, how did you even start running? How did that begin?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I did career counseling for a little bit and like help people figure out what you want to do with your life and your job, and like the more that I'm like living, the more I'm just like, don't tie yourself down to one thing. Like you have no idea where your life's going to take you, and you have to be flexible and just like know that even whatever you set out to like study and you have a career plan and go for, like it's probably going to change, and that's really okay. And
Yeah.
for me, it was like running was never in the picture, doing this was never in my picture, but 4.5 years ago, I just was really, I realized that I was so out of shape and I hadn't taken care of myself during, I, Baruch Hashem, had 4 kids in 6 years, and I was very busy. We worked on a college campus and I was hosting hundreds of students for Shabbat dinners. And, it was like my self-care went to the bottom of the list.
Right.
And the craziest thing to me, like at the now, is that I'm a person who loves sports. It's easy for me. Like I enjoy it so much. I always was athletic. I always was active. But I went 6 years without like doing any exercise, and I didn't even realize how badly I needed it. And it just made me realize how often like moms, like we just forget about how important it is to take care of ourselves, because as soon as I started running, I changed, like as a person, as a mother, as a spouse, like every part of my life changed in so many positive ways. And I
Well,
can't believe I went so long without realizing I needed it. Oh, sorry, Nava, we need to be quiet.
it's all good. This is what it's all about. But the that's exactly right what you're saying. In that so many times in life sometimes in life we either peg ourselves in a certain way and we stick to it too much, and then we end up going down a road and not realizing that when we start to understand who we are a little bit better and start to be more open with opportunities in front of us, then things start to change for us. And that happened for you, right? You started running and then you realized, oh my God, I love this. So
Yes, yeah.
how did it happen? Because I ran also for a little bit, and like I'm always curious, like, were you running and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is me? Like, did it hit you one day as you're sort of like turning a lap or climbing a mountain and you're like, I just want to do this every single day? Was it like a moment, or is it?
No,
It wasn't. Okay.
no moment, no.
So what was it?
I don't, do you, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure if people, I guess some people do have those moments of clarity. There are certain, I think we all do have moments like that. But for me, this running was such a journey and such a process, which is also like has made me realize how much our life is that process of growth and how much of a journey we're on in every area to become better.
Yeah.
Because like when I started running, it was just for myself to, to get back in shape, to be healthy.
Right.
And the craziest part is that at every step along the journey, the like goals that I set for myself that I thought were big at the time, I would achieve them. And then, think like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not going to get much further. Like that's it, like I've made it. But then goal like I realized goals that were like in my mind impossible, I ended up achieving, which like made me ultimately understand that really there are no goals that are too big. And like
Right.
you can't, like the concept of dream big, it's like dream huge. And I'm like a big believer in it, because so often we put limits on ourselves just because we're so confined to
Yeah.
who we are right now in the moment. We can't possibly imagine something different, you know?
Yeah. That's exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. I think many times in life, the greatest challenges that we have is that not that we set our dreams big and fail. It's that we set our dreams small and we achieve it, and we
Right.
just get stuck in the small. And as one gets older in life, there's this sense of like maybe it's too late. There's this sense of like, well, I'm too old. When I was younger, if I would have just known this 20 years ago, but that's not how life works, because whatever you know now, there's no age in which a person can't just wake up one morning, so to speak, even metaphorically, and start running marathons. Right? There's no moment where they say it's over. You can start whatever one's personal marathon is whenever you decide.
Totally.
So talk to me a little bit about the wall. This happens a lot of times in life, and I used to run a little bit distance, and I always would schmooze with people about how they deal with this, and I want to know how you deal with it, because to me, one of the greatest metaphors in life is the wall. You're running and you hit the wall, and that, for those who aren't aware, it's this concept, this term where you got nothing left, but the race is still going. Have you ever hit the wall, and what do you do mentally to get through those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, there's how much left? Well, there's nothing left in my tank, and how am I going to get my body to that place without dying? Like, what do you do to get over those moments?
So I'll say one thing is that I actually didn't think there was a wall for a long, like every marathon I ran until my most recent marathon, I never hit a wall. So I was like, what's this wall that everyone's talking about? Like my marathons always went, you know? And it was really honestly because I wasn't pushing myself to my limits. I didn't actually hit my wall. But in this most recent marathon, I ran in Tveria in January, where I pushed myself to my maximum limit. I did a time that I never like would have thought I could do. I hit the wall. I had a point where it was like, yeah, I was running and there was a pacing car. So I saw the time and I said, oh my gosh, I have another hour to go at this pace. Like, how the heck am I going to do it? And so the first thought that I think is really important to have when you have that like panic moment is like, don't think about the like whole thing that you have left to accomplish. Like focus on like in that moment, okay, I can just go another mile. Like I'm just going to think about the next mile. I'll get through the next mile, you know? Because like it's so easy when we have this like huge thing that we have to accomplish, and like it's easy to despair and our mind goes to like the negative. And my thing that I've learned is like the longer that we could stay as positive as possible, the better we'll function and perform in
Yeah.
everything. And it's
Yeah.
crazy like how quickly the shifts in our brain can like affect everything.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I tell myself, and the other is that I remember like in the final kilometers of that race, like I was almost like shaking. Like my coach told me like you can let up, like it's okay. But the thing that I was like kept me going is like every second I was like, I am not losing any second, because every second it's like it's this battle of the will. Like am I going to give in? Am I going to accept defeat, or am I going to become stronger from it? And that is like ultimately what defines us as human beings, those moments, you know? It's not really about the race of the running. It's the strength of character that we develop through going through those experiences. And obviously there are physical limits that we have, but so many like scientific studies have shown that our mind plays such a huge role in the actual like what we are actually able to achieve. So
Right.
I've seen time and again that like when you can connect to that strength in your mind, you can overcome the things that feel physically impossible.
Yeah. It's so true, and so nice to hear it from you, because in many ways the marathons are physical things in which we go through, but they're metaphors for so much in life. So many times in life we don't realize that the real battle takes place in those moments where we're ready to give in, and you hold off for one more day or one more moment, or you push 5 more minutes, you try it even though you don't want to try it. That's all the stuff that makes people great. It's the openness, and even what you said earlier, I want to just touch on before we move on. I know that the time is limited, but it's funny you said that you didn't hit a wall when you weren't pushing yourself to the max. And it's such
Yeah.
an interesting concept in life where some people just they're cruising. They're like, what's the big deal? And then some people, and it could be that the big deal of cruising is that the reason why we're cruising is because we're not trying hard enough. That failure and frustration and challenge are not signals of what's wrong with us. They're actually signals of what's right with us. It's us pushing
Yeah.
ourselves as hard as we can.
I think it's scary sometimes. Like we are scared of the failure and of getting beyond what feels comfortable. And so we like, I talk about that a lot because the first marathon I ever ran, when I trained for it, like I had no time goal. There was no, I didn't want to push myself. And then a month before, my husband told me, like, you want to get, he said, like, you're competitive. You want to know you did the best possible time you could. And I remember I was like terrified, but he helped me like realize like I should go for a goal and going for that goal, which I never like, 4 months before when I started training seemed ridiculous and impossible. And I ended up, even surpassing it, but made me realize like if I hadn't taken that risk and done something that was completely like scary and uncomfortable and pushed myself beyond my comfort zone, like I probably wouldn't be talking with you today.
Right.
I wouldn't have revealed that I did have this gift of running,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah. And
so
that,
powerful.
yeah, it's so powerful. And so much of our lives, and so many times in life, people assume that they can't when they just aren't willing to be vulnerable. There's a great nurse named Bonnie Ware. And she has this book she wrote about regret. She's a end of life nurse. She's in wherever she is, she deals with people that are at the end of their lives. And she says that one of the greatest regrets that she sees is when people realize at the end of their lives the life they could have had. Like they reflect and they're like, I could have had what relationship? Like, I could have had what I could. They start to realize that much of what they don't have in life comes from their lack of desire to be uncomfortable, to be vulnerable, to say things that they always should have said, that sometimes comes out as somebody, nears the end of their lives, that they wish they would have said 20 years earlier to that person and had 20 years of a better relationship. There's
Yeah,
so much of life that is undiscovered because of what you're saying. It's not because we can't, it's because we still want to be uncomfortable.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think we all struggle with it,
Yeah,
in
it's
all
life.
different ways.
And each of us, when we hear it, it's the marathons of our faith, it's the marathons of our family, it's the marathons of our careers. That's why it's so interesting to hear you both as an actual marathon runner, but also someone we're talking about marathons as the metaphor of how one grows in life. Before I let you go, can we talk a little bit about the balance, right? You're a mom, you've got Baruch Hashem, multiple children, you have faith. I know that you're trying to qualify the Olympics, and the Olympics right now, the qualifier I think is scheduled for Shabbos, which we hope they'll switch and make you able to do it on Sunday. You don't just wake up in the morning and you're like a single person, be like, what do I do all day? Let me just run, and then when I'm done running I'll just recover, and when I'm done recovering I'll just run. Like, it doesn't
Right.
work that way. So can you talk a little bit about how you manage to balance it?
I think like any working mom has a lot to balance, and I'm very blessed. Like I worked full time until a year ago. And when I quit and I was doing a job that I was very fulfilling for me, but it was also very demanding. And switching, being able to run as my career, like for my job, has been amazing because there is a lot of flexibility and because it's something that gives me so much energy for my family. Like I need to run anyways to be able to function. So like now I'm doing it for my job. I obviously don't have nearly as much, like I don't have the leisure that most professional athletes have, but I also don't have, it's not like my whole life is centered on that. To me, it's like I'm so busy. Like if a workout went a little bit bad, like I forget about it the next hour. It's like there was some other thing that I went to visit, I had a therapy with my son, and then I have supper to cook and shopping to do, and it's like it leaves me, so like I'm not caught up in those things, and I show up to workouts totally present because it's my time. Like I want to
Right.
be there and I'm so happy for it. But I think that like with anything, everything in life is a balance, and you just really have to be very clear with your priorities, and know what matters most to you, and ask yourself like I always say when people ask me, how'd you find time to do it? I said, I made a very structured schedule. Like I know at every hour what I want to be doing. And recently I've tried very much to be more present with my kids. And there are certain things that like, you know, as a media wise or building my brand, like I've totally not done, but I just decided like I'm focusing on being a professional runner for Israel and being a professional mom. And if that's all I can accomplish, like that's good right
Right.
now, you know?
That's incredible.
So,
Yeah.
and I will say that like I spoke for a women's program, and she was asked, and it was about women stepping out of line, and she asked me like what's one thing you're like most proud of accomplishing, or like one thing you want to be remembered for. And I was looking at that question, thinking about it that day, and like my husband came into the kitchen. I was just sitting there crying. He's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, I was just like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm like, if my kids say like we loved our mommy and she took such good care of us and she always was there for us, like that's what I want to be remembered for, you know? And it's so hard because like I'm sure you could relate to this, like when you're in the spotlight and people like, you know, look up to you and ask you for help and support and guidance all the time, and you're a role model, like you have to remember like who is the people that matter most to me are my family, and no one else could replace me as a mother to my kids. And like I tell myself that all the time because I need to remind myself of that, you
Yeah.
know.
It's very true. And now that once you have that grounding, the way you deal with the world is very differently. And in many ways, like you said, you can respond to the sport with much more perspective than when your whole
100%.
life is that sport.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit how you interact that in Judaism and your faith and the impact that has on you and the inspiration that it brings to other people. People are very moved by your values, by what you do, by how you dress, by how you act, by how you're strong. And what has been sort of the response, and what have you seen so far, and how you're integrating both your belief in God, your faith, and your career and your running objectives?
I always say that I'm really lucky because like I have no race anxiety because when I show up to a start line, I'm like, Hashem has my back. Like I always say like I know I don't show up to the start line expecting a miracle because we can't rely on miracles, but like I know every step I take is a miracle. So
Yeah.
I don't faith is incredible for that, you know? Like, and even my coach, it was funny, like the Olympic committee was asking him like, does your athlete want any psychological like training? Like we have a sports psychologist, and he was like, I think she's pretty good in that department. So um the
Grounds you
thing that,
properly.
and I honestly I used to feel like there's no struggle. Like I'm very, I have always been really passionate about being a proud observant Jew, and it never was a conflict for me. I will say that like as I've gotten more serious as an athlete, there are things that come up, and I know that when I'm losing minutes of time by the choosing the dress I wear. You know, whatever my clothing. There's a reason athletes dress the way they do. It's like it's a clear factor, but to me, ultimately, like I also know that I'm in this as I'm using my running as a tool to shine Hashem's light into the world. So like that's the ultimate purpose for me. I have been, you know, trying to figure out, is there a way for the Olympics were postponed for a year and everyone got excited. Oh, that means I will have the chance to run in the Olympic marathon because maybe it won't end up being on Shabbat again. But they pretty much said, you know, it's going to be the exact same days and it's going to be on Shabbat. And I've been trying through different avenues to see, is there a way for us to switch the date of the Olympic marathon and to speak up on the idea of the Olympics being, you know, universal and meant to be as inclusive as possible. And sport is an opportunity for people from all different race backgrounds. And like the only feedback I keep getting is just like, you know, I'm the one that's being difficult. Like religion, it's like how religious really are you? Like I'm sure there's a rabbi that would tell you like it's okay to run on Shabbat. And it was like it hit me. It was like so, that like I'm feeling like uncomfortable and wondering like, is it even okay for me to speak up on religion? And like that's not okay. Like we all have to be able to respect and appreciate and understand, like, you know, that, like, if I'm keeping, like, what my religious beliefs are valid and important to me. And that made me understand, like, the struggle's real. But it doesn't mean you should give up. Like, if
Right.
someone's giving you a hard time about your religion, you should keep at it and keep doing it and keep being proud of it and keep believing in it and keep obviously sharing your love with other people. Not like, to me, it's not like the whole world revolves around what I'm doing, but we all should respect each other for what we're doing. And so I realize that it's
Yeah.
gonna everyone, we do have real struggles with this. And if you are struggling with it, like, I'm here with you in that,
Yeah.
but we have to keep doing it and keep standing up for it.
Yeah. I got to tell you quickly, I know I started my career as a corporate lawyer. And the first day of my career, my Italian partner walked in and closed the door. First day. Welcome to the firm. Big law firm, very imposing, very intimidating law firm. I was this young kid at a law school. And he closes the door slowly and he says, "I hear you take off every weekend." And I'm like, I'm not, I didn't even like log into my computer and I'm going to have that conversation. And he says to me, "I hear you turn into a pumpkin on Friday." I'm like, okay. He goes, "Wherever you got to go, whatever you got to do, you do. Anytime. Never have to worry about my group." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because if it's good enough for Lydia, it's good enough for me." There's a woman named Lydia Kess who is the first, one of the trailblazers in corporate law for women, not just for Jewish women, for women. She's an incredible, incredible person. She was the senior partner of the firm. When she was my age, they gave her hell for keeping Shabbos, and she didn't back down. And she believed in herself, and she was an incredible lawyer. And over time, the partners realized, wait a second, she's incredible, and these are her beliefs. Fast forward 30 years later, some guy rolls in who happens to also keep Shabbos, and the partner goes, if it's good enough for Lydia, it's good enough for me. And what you're saying is
Wow.
critical, because we don't realize that when we believe in something strong and we stand up for our beliefs, what we're doing is we're paving the path for those behind us that'll never even know that we are pushing and trying and opening up the world to include so many more people, that there'll be people behind you that'll be like, "What? I don't know what's the big deal." And they won't even realize that you fought for it, that you lost sleep over it, that you had to raise your voice over it, that when everyone said back down and you could have, you said, "I'm not gonna." It's our people from the beginning. It starts from Avraham. That's what we do. We stand up and say, we're not backing down on what we believe to be true. And if it doesn't work out the way I want, I know at least I'm making a dent. And you should
Right.
know that you're making a dent, because your actions will impact your career or the careers of the people that are right behind you.
God willing.
Yeah.
With love, siyata d'shmaya.
Amen. Well, Beatie, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining our program. We hope to have you again. We wish you the greatest of luck. Keep on running. Keep on doing it. Keep on making us proud. You've got lots of fans cheering for you at every race. And most
Thank
importantly,
you.
keep on making Hashem proud. That's the most important thing.
This was amazing. It was really good chizuk for me. So thank you for sharing your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks again. Send regards. Shabbat shalom to you and your family. And I hope to have the opportunity to cheer you on in the Olympics maybe one day.
Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Good to see you.